What's going on, guys? It's Kai, and as of the time of this video, Tony has officially dealt with Taz's side B. It does not nearly as much knockback, but more importantly, his hit has less hits in it, so it does less damage, and it doesn't last nearly as long, so people can't be as ignorant as they were before. It is a godsend in a number of ways, but one thing that did not change was the size of the hitbox in relation to its hurt box. So chances are when they come around to properly fixing this move, this is kind of a band-aid of sorts to get people, I guess people's backlash under control. But once they finally target the other parts of his kit and they finally decide what they want to do with this side B, chances are it's going to be a little bit stronger than it is now. So you really need to know how to interact with it. And I went through every member of the cast and figured out how you want to deal with the hitbox. So let's get started. So there are three ways to deal with Taz-Nado: going under it horizontally and attacking kind of his feet, attacking from above vertically, and with disjoints. And for those who don't know what disjointed attacks are, these are moves that have hitboxes that are independent of a character's hurt box. The simplest example being a projectile like Batman's Batarang. Once thrown, even if his opponents hit the Batarang, Batman is unharmed. This also exists with melee attacks, oftentimes to a lesser extent though. Which is funny because the reason we're both here is because Taz-Nado is a melee attack that's so disjointed, most melee attacks, even disjointed ones, outright lose to it. But it can be beaten, don't worry. Every character has horizontal and vertical tools to deal with Taz-Nado, but the problem comes when the Taz player jumps and spams the Nado, disrupting these approaches entirely, leaving you with only your disjointed attacks to rely on. This is where the gap between the characters that can deal with Taz begins to form. Some characters can still reliably access their disjointed moves from different angles, but other characters' disjointed options are too slow to do in reaction, only work at certain angles, or can easily be baited. Here in green, I have characters listed who have reliable disjoints or other ways to deal with Nado, alongside those in yellow and red who have a harder time keeping Taz on a leash. Whether your character is in green or red though, you're still bound to learn something to gain an edge, so let's go over each character quickly. Alongside the Batarang, of course, Batman can somewhat reliably use his up special and his forward air to deal with Nado. It can be pretty tricky though, but one of the greatest things about both of these options is if you can read what height he's coming in at, you can adjust both on the fly, even targeting it from below if you manage to get under him. Shaggy's side special can shut down Nado no matter its altitude, with the only downside being he needs time for the move to activate. It's not the fastest. If you do need something really quick on the fly, I suggest his forward air because it can also get the job done. Lastly, Shaggy's sandwich, of course, is a godsend if all else fails, so I'd recommend keeping one on hand just in case. Now Garnet has to get creative, but she has more than enough options to deal with Nado. My personal favorite is her down attack ground slam. The more she charges, the more ground it covers. But if it turns out Taz is coming right at you or your spacing's off, you can quickly readjust by dodging out of it at any point and going right back into doing it, making the floor your own personal landmine in a way. Once the fear of God is in the Taz player, you can just threaten the move to bait a response. Next is Rocket Hands. This one is pretty straightforward, with the downside being they have a cooldown, of course. However, after a bit of testing, would seem her side special without the hands available may be disjointed enough to deal with the Nado just as well. And like many side specials, you have the additional functionality of adjusting the height up and down as you go to match Taz's Nado height. Now Jake is easy money, long range forward air punch to shut it all down. If you miss one, just back up and do it again. If you get attack decay, go ahead and use skate from above. This move is pretty egregious in general, so no surprises there. And for the real Jake mains, if you're looking for a sneaky kill, you can charge up attack on the ground near him while he's in Nado to scoop him up. For some reason, his arm doesn't have a hurt box, so if you see the opportunity, go for it. There is no way a Fin main is actually watching this video, because I actually had to spend more time trying to find a move that doesn't beat Nado than a move that does beat Nado. If for some reason though the match is super laggy and you want something extremely reliable to stop it, Finn's side special will do the trick. For those who aren't a Fin main, pick Finn up for the counter pick. Enough said. Now on the surface, Arya doesn't seem like she's got a lot of options to deal with Nado, but that's only if you focus on her sword attacks and her knife throw. Her neutral special, the face steal, can kind of reach through the Nado and always make contact, albeit a little bit slower, so you have to create the space to get to the move. Same with her neutral air. If you come in at a 45 angle above the Nado, you can also beat it clean. And lastly, her side special without the dagger beats Nado clean as well. The only downside to all these options is that they're a little bit on the slow side, so you have to be quick on your feet to create the space necessary, but don't think for a second she doesn't have the tools to get the job done. Harley hands down has the worst disjointed options to deal with NATO. Her side special is serviceable, but it's slow to start up. The hitbox is small, and the reward is relatively low for the amount of risk involved even in the best conditions. Similar things with her neutral air, and if you actually space this move improperly, you die. Lastly, you have Bat Bomb and Jack in the Box. The only issue with these specials is that their effectiveness can vary. You can miss Bat Bomb, of course, and Taz doesn't have to run into Jack in the Box. What really sucks is when the pacing of a match is so quick, you don't have time to set up these tools effectively. So unfortunately, the value you get from either special kind of depends on how aware the Taz player is, which as you win more games, you'll play against better players, which means that, the Taz player is going to be less likely to run into these things. Thankfully though, this is a 2v2 game and you can duo with someone who hopefully mains Finn to keep Taz on a leash. Then you can focus on Harley's strengths and she can begin to shine. Now Wonder Woman has 3 reliable ways to deal with a slippery Taz side B. The most versatile being her forward air. Naturally, she can drift left and right in the air and place the aerial wherever she wants vertically. And on the ground, she can also mirror that flexibility with her AoE down attack, giving armor to her teammates and gaining some for herself in the process. And lastly, she has Whip to deal with NATO at a range and even save her teammate from it if the need arises. Superman has options to directly and indirectly counter Taz's side B. With neutral attack and up attack on the ground gaining armor, you can take the fight directly to Taz. His aerials are also good options, but you have to be on point with your spacing and timing. If you want to be as safe as possible, you can always use heat vision from above to cut off his grounded approach and punish reckless spam with ice breath. Superman pretty much got it all, so you have to figure out what tool is best for the situation. Iron Giant can brute force through Taz's side B in a number of ways. His neutral attack just doesn't give a fuck no matter the height. On the ground, his jab will do the trick as well. And if he's somewhere in between, I recommend the command grab and just grab him right out of it. You can almost guarantee you'll stop Taz if you activate his neutral special beforehand for extra coverage if you really feel you need that insurance. Iron Giant is liable to change though, since he is still listed as experimental, but I'm sure these options will still stand the test of time. As for Rain Dog, all I recommend is neutral attack, and more neutral attack. You can blast Taz from the ground or the air using whatever angle you deem necessary, as much as you deem necessary. Rain Dog's just a natural at zoning Taz. Back up your neutral attack with a grounded up special and you can just start running circles around him. Once his movements become more predictable and linear, you can start to use side special to catch him lacking, whether on the ground or from the air. The only real issue comes up when he just gives up the chase and he focuses on your teammates, but I'm pretty confident most Rain Dog mains are used to this kind of response. Steven's quite limited in what he can do in terms of reliable disjointed options, but they're damn good options to have. His side special is a projectile, so it's pretty nice at keeping him at bay, but it does go on a cooldown. What's really nice though, I found, is his down special. As long as you can get the move out, you should be able to run over Taz pretty reliably. The key is to make sure you come down at a 45-degree angle, because Taz can still beat you if you're under him. But these 2 moves should suffice. It should be enough to slow down Taz to where you begin to use less committal moves and focus on team play. Velma just zones Taz even better than Rain Dog. Once she lands her lock on him, it's a wrap. He'll have to start dodging instead, which opens up down special, grounded up special, and neutral special. If all else fails, which it won't, in some instances you can force a safe trade with grounded side special to get out of a tight spot. I'd have to put Velma next to Finn when it comes to countering Taz-Nado. Also a pretty neat counter pick to pick up. Bugs has quite a few tools he can flex to settle Taz down due to his hit and run nature. Having a pie ready is huge for the jumpy NATO, so be sure to always have one prepped. But if you're not ready, you don't have a pie prep, you can always fall back on horizontal rocket, tunnel, and safe to just run circles on Taz until your pie's off cooldown. As long as you're properly rotating all these abilities, you should be fine, but that's not where it ends. Once you have put him on a leash and you can read his movements, you can start to bring out the forward air. As long as you line up the move vertically with Taz's height at the time, you can just smack him out of NATO. This should be your goal in the matchup, to be so comfortable you just feel you can use forward air, and the second you feel uncomfortable, you can just go back to all the things we just mentioned. Alongside all the assortment of projectiles at your disposal with your specials, Tom and Jerry also have a very generous hitbox on their forward air to stop Taz's side B. You just have to sync ever so slightly with his vertical and you should be able to shut it down without having to use resources. Keep a cool head and Nado shouldn't be too much of a problem in the matchup. LeBron has a number of ways outside of just throwing the ball in Taz's face to deal with Nado. With this ball in his hands, he can use his forward air pretty effectively with good spacing and timing. With and without the ball, his neutral attacks are also great answers. And to top it all off, without the ball, his side special pretty much beats Nado clean. So it turns out you don't need the ball at all to shut this down. So now that we have all these things to consider, the answer is quite clear. Just pick Finn. But seriously, if this helped, be sure to leave a like, share this video with your duo, and if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe because we got plenty more counterplay on the way. If you're hungry for more content, I got more Multiverse showing up on screen any second now. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.